How can you manifest success in your personal life and your business? You have lofty aspirations of what it is you want to accomplish. You know you're somebody who is set out there in the world to make a difference, to make a positive impact in the lives of other people. But you're wondering, how can I best strategize and utilize my resources in order to make the most positive, extraordinary impact on others while still creating an amazing lifestyle for myself? Whether you're a business owner or you're working inside of a company or you're an aspiring entrepreneur, this conversation today with Ben Spangl is going to be one to remember. I met Ben a couple months ago, time's flying, and he was actually introduced to me by a friend, Di Manuel, who we've had on the show before. And I was so impressed by Ben because Ben comes from the financial services industry. He manages a team of over 80 licensed agents, and I'll introduce him to you in a second here. But I'm just impressed with Ben and his ability to lead a team of so many different people while building a business for himself, while impacting lives and doing all these things to make a positive difference. I know you're going to love this conversation today. But you know the rules for the broadcast. We're not going to show you any sponsors. We're not going to have any flashy ads come across the screen. We're not going to interrupt your viewing experience. The only thing we ask in return is to help us grow the show. When you take away one piece of information, one piece of knowledge, simply share this show with just one person, unless you hate it, and then don't share. But I have a feeling you're going to love this conversation. So without further ado, let's talk to the man of the hour. His name is Ben Spangl. And for those who don't know Ben is an entrepreneur who runs a financial service agency of over 85 licensed agents. He's a speaker and the host of his own podcast called The Pursuit, which I was recently a guest on, and it was an awesome time. He's been a voracious student of performance, mindset, and strategy for the last 15 years, and he is married to his wonderful wife, Tiffany, and is a father to his 2 daughters. Ben, I have no idea how you do it all, brother, but it is super awesome to have you on the show, man.
Brendan, I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the introduction. I love what you're doing, and you're running a top-notch show here. I love it. I'm excited.
Right back at you, man. We're doing a lot of the similar things. We both want to make a difference. We both have skills. We're trying to get out into the world to help other people. Like we're kindred spirits, right? Our discussion on your show was very similar to many of the discussions I have on this show. And now I'm excited to dive into your story, hear a bit about your background. Like the first thing I'm going to ask you is how the hell do you go from where you were, which I don't really know, maybe you can tell me, to now running a team of over 85 licensed agents? How does that happen?
Yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap. No, I'm just kidding. It's if I take a step back, so I grew up in what I would call kind of a low middle income family where finances were always a struggle. Money was always a struggle. Mom and dad were always fighting about money, amongst other things. And a lot of turmoil in our house, not just for money, but a lot of turmoil. But I remember when I was young, making a decision that I thought to myself, man, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to not have money. I don't want to be like mom and dad that way. And so I got my first part-time job. I started working. I saved up about $5,000, which is a lot when you're 15, right? And then some things happened that I ended up, I bought a new computer. Mom and dad needed to borrow some money. And so I had all this money and then it went away. And so my whole plan was I wanted to have money, and then I ended up getting rid of all of it. And then when I turned 18, I started working construction and started making, pretty good money at that point in my life. Was on pace to make a 6-figure income. And same thing, I had it and then it was gone. Had it and then it was gone. And then you fast forward a little bit, I'm 21. I get an opportunity to start in the financial service industry, as you mentioned, and fortunate to get mentored by a few great friends, but at the time, just amazing mentors that really helped me start to begin my process of being an entrepreneur in the industry, starting to build hopefully some success. But my next few years was just filled with struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle. And although I seemed to be doing all the right things, I thought I was anyways, I wasn't seeming to get the financial success that I wanted. And then alongside that, I was slowly building my agency, right? Not very much, but slowly building my agency. And then, some things changed about 3 years into being an entrepreneur, 3 years into being in business. And some of the main things that changed were the ideas that you and I love to talk about. But really, I started to really change what was going on inside of here. I started to invest more time, money, and energy in myself than I ever had before. I had been doing it for that 3 years, but this was a new level. And I also had hit my own personal rock bottom where I just said enough's enough. And I had an experience where I had to borrow money from a family member. It was the most uncomfortable call. I remember being in tears asking my aunt for money because I couldn't pay for groceries that month. And I got off that phone so disgusted with myself that I said, this will never happen again. And it never did happen again. And it was a turning point. So that led to me starting to act in a new way, think in a new way, and a greater resolve than ever before. This is a long answer to your question, but it just triggered something in me. And all of a sudden I started to think differently. I started to think more about business ownership than I did just about being in sales, which was essentially what I was doing up to that point. And that led to starting to build a team, and it didn't happen overnight, but yeah, at that point I might've had 2 or 3 licensed agents and continued to grow it. And, consistency and time are phenomenal things for growing a business, growing a life, growing our dreams, all of it. So that's the answer I would give you on it.
Wow. So it sounds as if this took course over a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's important for everyone listening to realize, like, Ben's a young guy. If you're just listening, he's a young dude. He's building this business. He's experienced turmoil and challenges, but this has realistically all taken place, most of it over the course of the last decade to 15 years.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
I want to go back to something that you said there, which I thought was really important. Otherwise, it's going to leave my mind. You, for the longest time, you had money and then you lost the money. You had the money, you lost the money. I experienced a very similar pattern in my own life because I was never taught how to manage money. I talked to you about this on your show, so I won't go into it again. But what was the interrupt in that pattern of you having money and losing it? When did you finally start to have money and realize, okay, I'm not going to lose it again? How did you make that shift?
Great question. So for me, that big turning point was that time I called my aunt and needed to ask for money. The only really people in my family that had some money. So I made that phone call and I got off. And again, I was so sick and tired of being broke. I was so sick and tired of going through that experience that it was the proverbial drawing a line in the sand that enough's enough. And I think there's 2 ways we can end up changing, right? We can change out of desperation, inspiration. For me, it was desperation. It was the time in my life where I couldn't take it anymore and things had to change. So that was one component of it. Simultaneously, probably a week or 2 before this, I had attended a seminar, the Millionaire Mind Intensive Harbecker's program, T. Harbecker, and big fan of T. Harv.
Was this after or before the rock bottom moment?
I feel like it was right around the same time. So, It might've been a week before, it might've been a week after. Coincidentally, that's where I met my wife. My wife and I met at that seminar as well. So obviously very life-changing for many, many reasons. But at that seminar, I realized that a lot of the limitations in my mind and old beliefs I had around money were what were causing this continued struggle with money. And so that made me more aware and allowed me to start changing some things. So the combination of rock bottom, the combination of becoming aware of these old limiting thought patterns and of course habits in turn that were causing this, I would say that those were really what started to change. I started to manage my money differently. And what's hilarious is I was already in the financial industry for a few years at this point.
Yeah.
Right. In an industry where that's what we do. But it wasn't working for me. And it wasn't necessarily the strategy. The strategies are often very simple, but it's a lot of the time, it's the mindset, it's the psychology behind it. It's more that than it is a strategy. I mean, there's millions of strategies to get successful in any area of life, and most of them work. But if we don't have the right mentality, it doesn't.
Isn't that fascinating, though, how we can be in a role of helping people to do a specific thing and actually do really well in that role? Like I would gather to guess that there were some people while you were a financial planner for these individuals that you significantly helped them even before you had your own shit in order. Would I be right in saying that?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
It's strange because I was in the same position as a sales trainer, helping people learn how to make 6 figures selling cell phones. And it worked. I helped people to do it. But then I was logging into my credit card apps back at the hotel being like, oh my God, like my debt is still at 18,000, 17,000. It's very much the beliefs that you hold because some people came out of high school and succeeded in this industry and saved the money. And I even remember people at my first job who put away like 40% of each check. And that was an idea that was so foreign to me. It's like, well, how can you put that much away? Don't you have expenses? And some people they forget it even exists. Like for you, what were some of those old money beliefs that were holding you back? What did you change those beliefs to?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it was several things. I mean, growing up, when we're all growing up, when we're young, there's different things that affect our programming and conditioning. It's what we hear, it's what we see, and what we experience and what we feel. And so it's what's modeled around you. Your parents, people of influence, all of that, what they talk about, and what you listen to, everything. So for me, it was number one. It was seeing our family always struggling with money. I mean, that's what happened, was we always struggled with money. So I think that was a major thing. I know for sure one of the big things was a misconception and a negative belief system around rich people and wealthy people. And I remember hearing one time when I was younger, we were driving in this old Volvo station wagon that we had. And the Volvo station wagon had like this Goofy or Daffy Duck on the top. Anyways, we're driving past a restaurant, an A&W restaurant. And I think it was my mom, might've been my dad, doesn't matter. But I remember them talking about this person, how they were a rich bastard because they owned the A&W and they were a dentist as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck in my mind at that point, that if you were rich, you were a bastard, and not a nice person. And obviously, if most of us grew up, we want to be a good person. So if you've got a negative association to becoming wealthy or financially successful, that somehow that makes you bad, even though logically you can come up with all the reasons on why it would make sense to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So for me, I had to change that. So I changed several of the things. One was, as I started to have my income go up and then down and up and down, was I started to change the idea that making money was easy. And this became one of my favorite, I'm not even going to call it an affirmation because it was so much more than that. One of my favorite mantras, if you will, that making money is easy. Money comes to me all the time. Making money is easy. Money comes to me all the time.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. And then I worked on this book. There was this wealth conditioning book, this 90-day wealth conditioning book, where you would say stuff out loud, you would write things down, you would visualize yourself in a different way. And so I started to change the way I was viewing what being rich and being wealthy meant in that. And I actually started to break down the belief of that somehow being rich was bad. Because the truth is, I did know several of them in my life. And the only people I'd ever met, like personally, that I'd really met, not heard of, the ones I'd only ever met, were some of the nicest people I've ever met in my lifetime.
Oh,
the
yeah.
most generous people I've ever met in my lifetime. So it was this old thought that was probably passed down from their parents and their parents, right? But it wasn't true in reality for me. None of the people I knew that were actually really financially successful were like that at all. I'm sure there's some that exist like that, but the ones I personally knew, they weren't like that at all. So it really helped me change my belief.
It's just fascinating how, like, I never really met a ton of successful people, believe it or not, until like I knew a few here and there and a couple in my personal life. But if you think about it, physically, not all of us have the opportunity to get around people who are successful people. And successful, we're talking about in terms of money right now, but it could be finding a successful father and seeing what they do different, finding a successful business person, see what they do. But when it comes to wealthy people, I had never had the opportunity to be around many of them. And I was always like, if I felt inferior around people who were wealthy, and this was, again, old belief patterns.
For sure.
And it was around people of authority and wealth. And I felt like uneasy around them. And I remember even when I started to meet wealthier people in person, I remember one of the first companies I worked for, the top boss, he was a millionaire. He did very well for himself, a young man, 32, 33 years old. And he was so kind and generous and always asked me how I'm doing. Even before I could ask him about him, like he would just talk about me. And then he would leave and go somewhere else. And it's like, I didn't even get him a chance to ask about him. I didn't know anything about the man, but he always wanted to know more about me. But I started to ask myself, like, it just goes to show the old belief patterns. I started to wonder, is there an ulterior motive here? Why is this person so nice? Why do they only want to know about me? What are they really after? So it was that old belief that, sure, money can be bad. People with money did something illegal to get it or whatever it might be. But even you can see how that belief holds you back when you do find nice and great people. And you start to even look for that malpractice in people who are just genuinely generous people. It just goes to show the power of what you look for, you will find.
Well, I think there's a lot of social conditioning we have that idea that somehow successful people, they got there immorally or unethically or something along those lines. But also to your point that, why is this guy so nice to me? What does he want? And I think that we got a lot of messed up views that paradigms, if you will, around somehow if somebody's being nice to me, that there's something they want out of it versus maybe he's just a really nice guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You talk a lot about the law of attraction.
Yeah.
And I found the law of attraction when I was going through one of the roughest times in my life. It was my rock bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found it through the book The Secret with Rhonda Byrne. I remember talking about it on your show, and I saw your eyes light up when I said the law of attraction. And I was like, okay, cool. Another person who vibes with manifestation and this whole idea that what you think you will create. Like, how did you come across the law of attraction? Was it at the T. Harv Eker seminar, or was it another time?
No, I think I not the book, but I had watched the movie The Secret. So that was my first introduction to, well, technically I wouldn't have called it the law of attraction at this point, but my first book I ever read was Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
And that would have been in 2007. And I remember reading that book, and the idea, of course, Think and Grow Rich, is that your thoughts can turn into reality. So I wouldn't have called it the law of attraction then, but that was my first introduction. But then really into deeper would have been the movie The Secret, which led to more study than Bob Proctor and T. Harv a little bit for sure. But certainly Bob Proctor was one of the greater influences on me early in my life, my business life and professional life and financial life. He was
incredible, man. I remember watching old videos with Bob Proctor, and he would have his whiteboard, and he'd be writing these very detailed, in-depth pictures of like atoms and the quantum mechanics that were happening. And I probably need to go rewatch and revisit these, because when I watched it was at the very beginning, and I was like, whoa, this is really strange. But the one thing it showed me was that there are so many different things happening behind the scenes that we have no comprehension of. At least at the time, I had no comprehension of. Yeah. Like when you saw this material, like what did you think of it at first? And like, were you applying it, or did you adjust things? Like, how did it impact you?
No, I was applying it for sure. I mean, I remember there was a sales contest that I was 2 years in the business, and there was a sales contest to qualify to go to Mexico. And my business wasn't big enough that there was any chance I was going to go. There's no way. But there was a wildcard draw. And the wildcard draw was if you did a certain amount of production and recruiting in the month, you got to, your name in the hat. You got a draw entry. And whatever, it was a 4-month contest, 6-month contest, doesn't matter. I got my name in several times. And then what they did was they did a draw. So however many people got in the wildcard draw, lots. And then they did what's called a reverse draw. So then they would draw 10 names out. And then once that 10, then they would have those 10 in the hat, and they'd start drawing. And if your name got drawn, you got kicked out until the last person standing. Well, I had started to learn about the law of attraction. So I'd been looking at this resort online. I'm picturing being there. I wasn't with my wife yet. So I knew I was going to bring my mom. My mom had never been somewhere like that. So I wanted to bring her. And I'm picturing it. I'm feeling it. I know they're going to draw my name. I'm meditating on this. I'm visualizing on it. And so, I had 4 or 5 entries in the draw. So did a bunch of other people. The day of the draw, 10 people get drawn. I'm one of the 10. First person out of the reverse draw, they get kicked out. I'm nervous, but at the same time excited. And now it's down to me and this other guy, John. And I remember being in the room, a live draw. We're all there in the room, being in the room. And it was just down to the 2 of us. And the guy drawing it, Greg, he goes, "Hey, are you nervous?" And in that moment, I just said, "No, I know it's going to be me." And then, sure enough, it was me. And so we win this trip to Mexico. I'd never been anywhere like it. It was just amazing. And so that was my first one of my first big ones anyways, was that trip to Mexico. So I'd been practicing it. One of my guitars, you can't see it right here, but I got a beautiful guitar over here. That's another crazy story of early in my life of manifesting just crazy stuff that happened.
What kind of guitar is it?
LTD, 401DX to be specific. Ooh. So it's a Flying V. Yeah.
That's incredible. And that's the one that you had from earlier in your life.
That's like an early manifestation. Yeah.
How did you manifest the guitar?
So I was really broke. This was when I had no money, but was really into guitar. And I had a nice Jackson guitar that I played, but then I went to the music store and there was this guitar that was $1,000, which at that point in my life might as well have been, $50,000. I mean, it was a lot of money, right? I was just not even paycheck to paycheck. I'm going backwards every month.
Yeah.
But I saw this guitar and I thought, man, I want this guitar. And so I, looked up online, cut a picture of it out and put it up, and I was thinking about it. And then I went back probably about a month later, and now the guitar was $650. It was on sale, $650. And I had $100. I had just got paid on a commission. I had $100. And I said, listen, I want to put $100 down. I'll figure out how I'm going to get this. This was December. And so I said, yeah, sure, you can do it. So I put $100 down. I have no idea how I'm going to get the rest of this money, but I wanted this guitar. Had played it at the store, obviously, everything. And the craziest stuff happens. And this is why I know the law works. And these are two like shorts. I could, I know you could too, but hundreds of stories I could tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I know the law works is all the circumstances and events that need to happen end up happening in wonderful ways, surprising ways. So here's what happens. So it's December. I need the money. I'm going back home for Christmas. And a few strange things happen. My grandmother, who my entire life had sent me a check for $100. So I was counting on the fact that I'm going to get a check for $100, from my grandmother, right? And I'm thinking, every Christmas before, every Christmas after, $100. Nobody knows I want this guitar other than me. For some reason, though, she sends me $200 this year. So I need $650, right? I put $100 down, so I need $550. And then, so I get $200. Then my dad, who never gives me, my parents had split at this point, had never given me money. And he ends up giving, I don't remember, it was $150, $200, something like this. And then my aunt and uncle, the aunt that I had to borrow money from the one year, who also had never given me money, they always got me a present. They end up giving me enough. And it literally worked out to guess how much I had already put 100.
Wow.
It literally worked out to $550 in the craziest way. Yeah.
It's just mind blowing how you had no expectation of how it would come together, even with the trip. You probably put your name in there, and a part of you was probably like, this is just one of those raffles that I'm not even going to come up close. But you intentionally said that time, I'm going to see the reality that I want. I'm going to see the outcome that I want beforehand. Did you do that with the guitar? I can only imagine that you were daydreaming 100%. All the time with the guitar, thinking about it all the time.
And I would go and play it. Right? Like I would go to the store and play this guitar. So I had a real physical experience with it too. So, that's another thing too. The more we can, obviously things like vision boards and mind movies and all this stuff are really incredible. The power of our mind and to imagine, but if you have an opportunity, you got a car you want and you can go test drive it and actually get into the real senses of it. Well, that becomes easier for your brain to pull up that experience too. It's amazing. One more quick story. So last summer we're sitting on our deck. My mom was visiting. She now lives 5 minutes from us, but before that she didn't. And I wanted to get a water cooler. I either wanted to get a water cooler so we could get, natural spring water, or I wanted to get a reverse osmosis system. So it's June. We're sitting on our back deck, beautiful morning, 9 a.m. And my mom and my wife are there, and I tell them, I said, I want to get either a water cooler or a reverse osmosis system. 3 hours later, I go out to my front yard, open up the garage, go out the front yard. My neighbor, Kyle, beside me, to the right of me, has a water cooler on his driveway. 3 hours later, after just saying this thought. And I said, Kyle, what are you doing with that? And he goes, actually, I'm going to bring it to the eco center. It's from our cabin. The cold water function doesn't work anymore. So I was just going to give it away, but it still does. If you want it, you can have it. Amazing.
Wow. Your neighbor.
But my neighbor. Like 3 hours later, not 3 days, not 30 days, not 3 years, 3 hours later, it's on his friggin' driveway. The minute I step out into my front yard, if I would have missed him by 5 minutes, I totally would have missed it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible. And then
when you tell people these stories, though, people are like, oh, it's coincidence. And a lot of people listening, like they are in on the law of attraction, but there's still that doubt that we all have. Like, is this a real thing? Is this something that's happening? Because it's very far out there. Even I agree. Like people say The Secret, it's cheesy. It's this. It says to when you pay your bills, imagine that they're checks, right? Visualize what you're actually paying for. Like I remember we just got a water bill in the mail. And it was like $88. And I was like, I looked at my wife, and at first I was like, oh, now I got to grab a check and write a check out. I don't write checks for anything except for the freaking water bill twice a year. And I'm like noticing, and we talked about being conscious of how you feel. And we talked about state change in our last conversation, but I'm noticing the frustration that is coming along with the having to write a check. And I was like, wait, why am I frustrated right now? Like I have the means to write this check. And I'm paying $88. So, twice. So I'm paying $170, $180 a year to have as much fresh and clean water that I want without having to go hike to the watering hole, walk 5 miles in the morning, 5 miles back in the afternoon. Like I literally get to write a check, and literally my attitude changed practically instantly. And I was like, why was I frustrated about this a few minutes ago? It's just the way that our mind works and how it changes the way that we feel. It's the same thing with what you want. If you can change the way you feel about what you want, if you can make it very real to you, like you said, if you go test drive the vehicle, making something real to you, just like you visualize the vacation that you wanted to go on, you are training your brain to expect new
Yes.
things, and your brain's like, and whatever this cosmic energy is, whatever you call it, God, the universe, it's fashioning things in ways that you can least expect. So the universe heard water cooler. All right. And then your neighbor he had it probably the whole time, but now you were focusing and you were looking for different things.
Yeah, well, what's fascinating for those that are skeptical, if you're listening, thinking, "Oh, it sounds good," it's a coincidence, or even some, if you're super skeptical, oh, they're just making up those stories. If you think about it, so if you think about anything in physical existence, whether it's this cup, that water bottle Brandon's got, the chair that you're sitting on, anything in physical existence is made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of subatomic particles, and subatomic particles are in the realm of energy. Right. And so everything at its root is this one infinite substance of energy, this, invisible energy. We can't see it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But the energy, what's fascinating is with the observer effect. I think this was the early 1900s when scientists started learning about Niels Bohr and all that stuff, Niels Bohr, but was that with the observer effect, when they were studying these subatomic particles, the particles would appear under the scientific equipment and then it would disappear. So it would flash into reality, they can measure it, and then disappear. And what was fascinating was they were trying to figure out with math and science on predicting it, like, solar system, how you could predict it, or how fast something's going to fall with gravity. You could predict it. It was numerical. What was interesting about the observer effect was it would flash into existence and flash out, and where it would reappear was not by any mathematical structure. It would reappear where the researcher was looking for it. So their consciousness, their mind, the impact of them watching it dictated where it would show up. So what that tells us, though, is that we're influencing at the subatomic level. We are influencing that energy. And if we can influence it at the root, the subatomic, and then it goes back into, atoms and then molecules and then everything in existence. Well, if we could influence at the core of it, then could we influence the external reality? And the answer is yes. And that's what we're doing.
Oh, damn. By the way, you are so much better at talking about the law of attraction than I am, because that was excellent. Just the idea of the subatomic particles. Like, how do you influence energy today? How do you influence the energy of what it is you want? Do you have certain routines? Yeah. How do you personally do it?
Yeah, for sure. My biggest thing is meditation. I'm a massive fan of meditation. I've been doing it really seriously the last 5 years. On and off for probably a decade or more, but really seriously the last 5 years. Meditation I think it's the greatest practice if you want to create change in your life. There's specific kinds you can do. I'm a really big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza and his work. I think he is the top expert in the field on creating reality. And although he wouldn't describe himself as that, that's what I view him as. His meditations are unbelievable. His books are unbelievable. Huge fan. Could not recommend him enough. Dr. Joe Dispenza. But meditation's a big one. Visualization is so powerful. And we hear a lot about visualization. And what's interesting is if you're in high level athletics, you visualize all the time, right? The best performers in high level athletics, they're visualizing. They're seeing the game before, they're seeing how they're playing, they're seeing the victory, they're crossing the finish line, they're doing all of that. Why are they doing that? Because it works. Well, if it works in high level athletics, high level business people do it too, but you can use it for any area of your life. So visualization, meditation, visualization are two of the most powerful tools that cost nothing. They're free, unless I guess you're buying meditations, but they're very inexpensive then. Affirmations, written statements that you either read or write or speak aloud are another great things. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is you're starting to learn to control, as you mentioned, Brandon, the way you feel. Because the way you think and the way you feel, if you imagine thoughts are like what you're sending out to the universe. So when I think of something, I'm sending it out there, whereas your feeling is the magnetic pull. That's drawing it back to you. And together, the way you think and the way you feel, this creates your state of being. This creates your own personal electromagnetic signature, which is what's creating your life. The people, the circumstances, the events, all of it.
Say that again. I've never heard it described that way. So thoughts.
Yeah.
Say the whole thoughts and feelings are you receiving. Can you say that again, maybe in a different way? Because that's fascinating.
Yeah. So when you think of it this way, right? So if you think in your brain, what does that do? It creates an electrical impulse, right? So that's the electric side of things. So I think I create an electrical impulse. I'm sending out that electrical impulse into the quantum field, the universe, into the mind of God. I mean, spirit, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter what you call it. whether it's scientific or whether it's more spiritual, that's up to you, right? It's the same thing. But to think is to create the electrical impulse that sends it out. Whereas feeling creates more of a magnetic charge in my body, and they can measure it. They can measure your magnetic field. But the two of these things together, the way you think and the way you feel. So if thought's electric, feeling's magnetic, when we combine the two, they're creating your own electromagnetic signature. Wow. And that's what Spangl calls your state of being. And ultimately what it is that's what draws to you all the people, circumstances, and events in your life to match up on that frequency, energy. So I'm going on a tangent here, but energy is, if we think of the subatomic level where everything's energy operates on frequency and vibration, right? That's all that it does. So it's always moving. And so that's your personal frequency, your personal vibration. And the law of attraction says really simply, like energy attracts like energy. Whatever frequency and vibration you're operating on is going to draw to you things of a similar nature. So if I'm operating on a low level frequency, I'm operating on lack, I'm operating on frustration, I'm operating on my life sucks, which we all fall into at times, or at least have at different times in our life. That's why your life kind of continues to suck, is you keep drawing the same kind of people, the same circumstances. It seems like you're a victim to life, that life is happening to you. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening because of you. Now that's a tough pill to swallow when our life's not working well.
Yeah. And people listening might be thinking, well, I want to start using these principles for me. Well, you're already using them, right? It's already happening all around you. Just like gravity is, the pen, you drop it, it falls. It's happening right now as you listen or watch to this conversation. But the difference is what you just said. What thoughts and impulses are you going to begin sending out? Maybe even one or two different impulses every single day will then draw to you different energy, which will, like you just said, create a different electric magnetic signature for you. And by the way, you can do that very, very quickly. Like, let me ask you, when you were at that rock bottom period, right? How long was it before you had significantly changed your life?
Oh, it wasn't that long. I mean, I want to say the next month. So I reached my rock bottom. The next month, I had a lot of invisible results. My business I knew there was good stuff in the pipe. I hadn't made a lot of money that month, but I think I made $3,000 or $4,000. But then the next month, I went on to make $8,000, and that for me, that was a big number then, right?
Yeah.
And so it was great. I had my best sales month I'd ever had up to that point. And then that following year, I ended up, I basically doubled my income that year, right? Little bit more. And then the next year it doubled again. Now, keep in mind, some of these numbers weren't that big at the time, so it probably sounds better than it is. But my life started to change, right? It really started to change, and then the years following were monumental.
Yeah. And now look at where you are now. Now you've got the pursuit, and you've got these, and you've got the 66 days to success seminar, and you've got, these law of attraction concepts that you're thinking. Like, what then made you decide to create the pursuit? You're already leading a team. You're already a husband. You're already a father. Like, why one more thing to balance on top of all those? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we talked about Ed Milet on our call, right? So we're in the same business. And I remember being at a convention in 2008, in March 2008, and I heard Ed Milet speak. And there was one thing he said. I was there for 4 days, spent the last bit of money on my credit card to get to this meeting. But there was one thing he said that I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember making the decision in my life that my life was going to be different. And it impacted me in such a way. And I think he's the top speaker in the world. I think Ed is the best inspirational, motivational speaker in the world, in my opinion.
I agree.
But it made such an impact on me. I said, man, one day I want to do that, right? One day I want to be, doing what he's doing. And that had stuck with me since 2008. And then in the business, leading a sales team, training people, recruiting people, get opportunities to speak and all of that. So I developed my speaking ability, did lots of internal conferences. And for years, I told myself, one day I'm going to be a speaker. One day I'm going to run seminars. One day I'm going to do it all around the world and do these kind of seminars and speak and keynotes. But it was always one day. It was always, some distant point in the future, hitting a real time. Once I'm here, once I'm at this point. And then on my 35th birthday last July, I started journaling, as I often do. I know you love to journal. And I'm writing about my life and what do I really want to do now? And this thought dawned on me. I'm 35, and I just asked myself the question, well, when am I going to do this? Am I going to wait till I'm 40, till I'm 45? What if I die at 45? What if I die at 50? What if what if it takes time to build it up? And so that thought triggered some stuff for me. I'd already started the podcast. The podcast happened mostly out of encouragement from a good friend of mine actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I had told myself I'll start a podcast one day, not done it. And then she reaches out to me about 6 months later and says, hey, have you ever thought about doing a YouTube channel or a podcast? Something I think you'd be great at it. And I said, yeah, I thought it was too much work though. I don't think I'm going to do it. She goes, no, I think you should do it. I would listen. I think there's a lot of people that would.
Yeah.
And her name's Lena. And anyways, it got me thinking. So I thought I'm going to do it. So I bought the equipment, did nothing with it. Sat on my cubby here for months. And then one morning I thought, man, I'm going to friggin' do this. I went downstairs, recorded the first episode, and that was started the podcast.
Hell yeah.
And now starting to get, I'm starting to develop the seminar, the 66 Days to Success seminar. I'm developing a law of attraction seminar. I know we talked briefly about it, but I developed a journal that on 66 Days to Success. And so it's, I don't know, man. It was just kind of doing it.
And what's the mission behind the journal? What's the mission behind the seminar? What are you looking to accomplish? Because I know that your 66 Days to Success seminar is it's upcoming. It's coming soon. And for those listening, I mean, there's going to be links in the description for you to check out Ben's journal. But when the seminar is ready, it's going to be in there. And when you're watching or listening, it might be ready. Check the description link. But what are you ultimately looking to accomplish with these ventures?
So my life has changed so much. I feel like I've been so fortunate, so blessed to have met amazing people, amazing mentors and through the books I've read, through the people in business, to all of it, it's completely changed my life in such a dramatic way. And I want to help people. Really, where I want to help people though, is I really want to help people understand who they are. I really want to help people understand that you are not a victim, that you are a creator, you're unlimited in what you can create, and you can be, do, and have whatever you want. So my mission as I move forward is I want to help people create the lives that they want, and not by me doing it for people, but instead teaching tools that I know are truth, that you can go and apply these in your lives, and you can create anything and everything you want. I mean, the world is, I love, your podcast and your state, Be Better Broadcast. I mean, it's amazing. But imagine how much better the world would be if the majority of people operated under the assumption that I'm the creator of my life, that I can attract all these great things. I mean, we wouldn't have wars. We wouldn't have competition. We wouldn't have people stealing. We wouldn't, none of that stuff. Why would you ever do that if you knew you were the creator of your life? Why would you be jealous of somebody else if you knew you were the creator of your life? So I think there's so much good we can do in helping people understand who they are. Yeah.
Oh, what a mission, dude. And you're doing it with your show. You're having incredible people on. Even in this conversation, guys, you go back. I mean, you've got several different things that you can begin doing right now. You can begin the journaling. You can grab the copy of the 66 Days to Success journal, which you showed me before this. I mean, feel free to hold it up. Ben's got the journal with him. I mean, it asks you some powerful questions like what's an example of something that you might have someone journal every single day in that journal?
Yeah, well, I can walk you through the whole thing. So it's there's the power of writing, as you know, is so incredible, right? Writing impresses thought, and it kind of, Brian Tracy said, writing crystallizes thought. But when you write, it triggers an image in your mind. When you trigger an image in your mind, you start to trigger a feeling. And as we talked about earlier, what we're trying to do is improve the quality of our thinking and improve the quality of our feeling. And so journaling to me is one of the best tools. I didn't mention it earlier, but it's one of the best tools we can use. So I got stuff in here about every day you're writing down 10 things you're grateful for, because gratitude is this magnetic feeling. If you're grateful for something, truly grateful, not logically, but truly emotionally grateful, what does it signify? It signifies that I already have this in my life. Right? So to be grateful for things in your life is a beautiful feeling, but then to start to practice gratitude for things that haven't yet manifested is incredible, because now we're signifying to the field, we're signifying to the universe that, hey, I've already got this. Even though technically you don't, on a quantum level, on an energetic level, you do. So gratitude is super powerful. Then there's a spot about who do you want to be today, writing your affirmations out. Who are you? I am what? Why do you want to be your best? What's your best look like? And then one of my favorite exercises that I learned from Bob Proctor, I love Bob, and just such an impact in my life. Met him a few times, just incredible.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Yeah. And is to write out a goal letter or a vision letter. So you're writing out your ideal life. It might be something down the road, a big vision. It might be your next 90 days. It might be 6 months, a year. That doesn't matter. But you're writing out your future as if it's already all happened, and you're describing how it's going, how you feel. And we're putting ourselves into that state of already being there. And there's some reflection stuff at the end of the day, but it's a great journal, great reviews on it, great success. So yeah.
Incredible. I need to grab myself a copy. I love the idea of a goal or vision letter, and the idea that you can be grateful for things that haven't even happened yet sounds outlandish, but think about it. You're much more apt to fight for something that you have that you don't want to lose
Right.
than something that you want that you don't yet have. And something changes in your biochemistry when you think of it that way. And it's just learning how your mind and your body operate, how they synergize together. And it's what you talk about. It's understanding the strategies that will take you from where you are to where you want to be. And there's millions of strategies, but it's acting on and operating on the ones that feel good for you. Right?
Yeah.
Try, test new things, especially if you're a young man, young woman watching. Try new things to manifest this life that you want, and use some of these tools in order to make it happen. Ben, we've already talked about your show, The Pursuit, and I want to respect your time. So I will wrap up by asking you, where's the best place that we can follow you to keep up with all the cool things that you're doing?
For me, the best is Instagram. So it's at Ben Spangl. I know you'll have the links in there, but if you're just listening, so Spangl is Spangl. So there's a tendency to want an E on the end, but there isn't. But Instagram's the best. I manage it fully myself personally. So if you message me, it's me talking to you. It's not somebody else. I know you're really big on LinkedIn. I have one there, but honestly, I don't really use it a ton. Facebook, I'm all right on, but Instagram's the best for sure.
Okay. Everyone, links are in the description, as well as links to the 66 Days to Success seminar, journal, all the fun stuff, to his podcast. You got to go check him out, because if you like this, you're going to love everything else that Ben's doing. Ben, thank you for being on the show. We've come full circle now.
Yes.
And I look forward to our future conversations, brother, because I always feel amped after I talk with you, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Me too, man. It's awesome. I love being here. You're giving me tons of ideas of where I need to level up as a host. You're phenomenal at it. I love the production. I love the way you interview. I love your genuine just care of the guests. And I've felt that ever since we connected. And it's awesome working together.
I appreciate that, man. And right back at you. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Whether you are looking to level up in your personal life, whether you're looking to level up in your career or your business, there's something in this conversation that you can take and use for yourself. Starting right now in this moment, you can begin to visualize that life that you want. You can begin to attract different things, feel different emotions, and it's all up to you. It's all up to, will you choose to do that? Will you choose to operate on a different strategy in order to manifest the life that you want for yourself? If you love this conversation, share the show with just one person who could use it the most. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.